In this video, we're going to do something different. We're going to show you how to cure and cook venison tongues. We've been eating corned beef tongue for years and absolutely love it. And now we're going to use that principle to do our venison tongues. So here's our venison tongues. They come from red deer. And I've cleaned them all up. And they've still got that outer skin on, which is quite thick, quite strong, which will come off after it's been cooked. So to corn the tongues, you need to have a brine or a pickle. You can go to the butcher shops suppliers and buy one, but they normally make 45 litres and I only need a litre today, so I've made one at home here. And it's 1 litre of water, 75 grams of salt, 75 grams of sugar, and a tiny little pinch of quick cure, which retains the red colour when you cook the tongues, and a tablespoon of pickling spice. They give it a bit extra flavour. So that's what you can see floating in there. I brought it to the boil and got all those ingredients to dissolve and put it in the fridge overnight and let it cool. So now I'll just strain out those pickling spices. Left with the clean brine. I'm going to inject the brine into the tongues using this marinating needle, which we got from a barbecue shop, but most barbecue and butcher supplies will have some sort of needle that you can inject a liquid in with. You can just soak them in the brine, but you get a way better cure by injecting. The reason I strained out the pickling spice is that the little seeds and spices will get stuck in the eye of the needle. So it's just a matter of bit by bit injecting every part of that tongue. And getting it into as many areas as you can. You can see that all expanding there with the pressure of the brine going in. That's what you want to see. You can never give it too much. If you give it too much, it just squirts out. So you just keep pumping it in until it won't take any more. If you didn't give it enough, when you cut it, you'll see little grey areas where the pickle didn't get. And still quite edible, but it just doesn't look as good. That's the first one pumped, and you can see how much it's swelled out after the injection. So I'll do the second one now, exactly the same. Pump both the tongues now, got as much of the brine liquid in as we could, and now you put them back in the fridge for a day or two. We're going to do them for a couple of days. Our corn tongues are now in a plastic container to go in the fridge for a few days. And the top one floats a little bit, so every day I turn that so that it doesn't dry out. And then in a couple of days we're going to cook them up. We're out in the bush camping and we're going to cook up the venison tongues that we pickled a couple of days ago. And then we're going to cook them in a ground oven, which I'll show you shortly. So take the tongues out, just put them in this dish here to drain a little bit. Finished with the pickle, it can be thrown away now. And I get my foil ready to wrap them up in. So I turn one way and turn the other one opposite so they fit in nicely, and wrap that up to try and get a very good seal. I'll do a couple layers. I'm going to do one more layer, that'll be 3 layers all up, and all these extra layers help protect the meat from any hot spots and seal all those juices in. So it cooks in its own liquid. And all those flavours from them pickling spices will go through nicely. So that's ready for the fire now. So at this stage of the process, we're going to put it in the fire, but that's when, if you're not using a fire, you could have just cooked it in a boiler or a slow cooker in water, the same as you do any of your corned meats, and it'll work out just as well. But we're going to use... I pre-dug a hole earlier this morning to cook it in. It's about 25 centimetres deep, and there's a lot of moisture in it because we had a bit of rain recently, so I had a shovel full of coals in there earlier just to dry the hole out a bit to preheat the hole up. So now that I've cleaned that out, I'm starting with a dry hole now, and I'll put some coals in the bottom there. So you can see those coals in there now. I was saying they're about 10-15 centimetres deep. I just put a small layer of dirt across the top of them so that the tongues aren't actually touching the hot coals. So that's just a thin layer there now. Place the tongues across there. Now, put some more dirt around the meat. The tongues. So we've got a layer of dirt all the way across the top of those tongues now, so that the coals don't actually contact the alfoil. And now we just fill her up. Well, the tongues have been cooking for 4 hours now, so it's time to take them out and have a look. Let's gently remove that top layer. Until I come across the alfoil. There it is, just there. I'll use the tongs now. And I'll take him over the table and open it up. Let's have a look. Okay, I'm just opening up that alfoil gradually. You can still see there's still some juices left in there, and they look nice and well cooked. So we'll just take them out and place them on the board and let them cool, and then we'll be able to take the outer skin off, and then they'll be ready to eat. I'll let them cool a bit, and I'm going to start peeling that outer skin off. So just bit by bit, you just work your fingers under the skin and peel that outer layer off, just like that. Just keep peeling it off. There, coming off nicely. Okay, we've taken the skin off the pair of them. Now let's slice some up and see what it looks like. Beautiful and tender. You can still see a little bit of the fatty juices in the middle. And let's see what it tastes like. That's so good. You can taste the flavour from them pickling spices, and it's soft and tender, and yeah, that's as good as corned meat gets.